action. Action Jackson, baby. What's up? It's G. This is G. This is your Friday night astrology. All right, this is the video. It's about a viewer's question. Yeah. And so this one is going to be about stelliums. Right. The word stellium. It's been coming up a lot lately, and the channel hasn't really taken the time to thoroughly go through it. So this is what this video is going to be about. I'm going to attempt to thoroughly go through stelliums without, I don't know, without driving people too crazy. I'll have a chart up here in a minute that we can, pinpoint some of the things and understand so that I can have examples. Okay. So the first thing we know about stelliums is that technically the definition for a stellium is when you have 3 or more planets, typically 3 or more planets in the same sign. They don't have to be in the same house. They can be split, right? Because if you have like a tropical Placidus chart, you follow tropical Placidus, which is the chart system that I use, you're going to have a system where one sign could very easily span across the 4th and the 5th house, just as an example. Or you could go from the 12th into the 1st. And I'll show you this chart in a minute, and I'll give you that example. I'll mark it up and you'll see it. So that is technically the very, very basic version, the basic definition for a stellium. 3 or more planets in the same sign. Okay, so the meanings are going to have to do with the planet itself and the sign that it's in. So obviously, if you know the sign that it's in, that the 3 are in, basically just jot that down, literally write down the keywords for the definitions and the meanings of that planet, literally. And that's many times when I do your guys' readings, especially your rising sign readings, I'm talking usually about multiple things. I'll talk about, like, if there's a major event, a planet making a big, a planet that would be obviously making its move. We'll say June, the Jupiter thing, right? So I've done that. But then I always include normally the full moon and the new moon, because the moons and the nodes, the moon's nodes, like the north node, the south node, if those change sign, like those are always going to be big events because we can most easily see them. And we can most easily track them. We're more aware of those emotional nuances because that's what the moon is, our emotions, and it's our family, right? So when you have the new moon and the full moon, it's usually like, oh, it's that. I know what that is, right? And so they're easy to track. But many times it's not just about the moon. We have to know the sign that the moon is in. So I will literally write up pages of notes. I don't know if you can see that. I'll write up pages of notes. And these are my notes for the upcoming video and I have to get it on the channel. I don't know why I haven't put it up yet. There's a new moon coming up in May. It's already in the May videos, of course, for the rising signs, but yeah, it's a deep dive chart on the new moon because there's a lot of interesting stuff happening on that new moon. So anyway, this isn't about that. But that video would be a great example of stelliums because there's a buttload of stuff in Taurus. And it's a Taurus new moon. So that would be a stellium, just having 3 or more planets. But the question comes down to, what does it mean when I have a stellium in my own chart, right? And so that's really why somebody would ask that question. Because if it's in your natal chart, you're like, damn, what does this mean? You got to pick that thing apart piece by piece. You got to write down the keywords for the sign that it's in. Just like I said here, I write down all the keywords, like you see Sagittarius, and I'll just jot down keywords because there are times when there's keywords that just don't come out, like whatever the most prevalent stuff is for whatever reason, that's what's like it penetrates and it comes through to me. It impresses me the strongest. And so I talk about it. But at the same time, I am feeling like I don't want to forget or leave out unintentionally, leaving out other things. So I'll write them in ahead of time, and yeah, it helps me to kind of be balanced in that way. So you always want to write your keywords down. All right. And then the planet. So if we're saying that we've got Mercury in Pisces, we're like, okay, what does that mean? Because then we've got like 3 or 4 other things in Pisces. So we already know we write down all the Pisces keywords, right? You write down all the Pisces keywords: Hollywood, sci fi, fantasy, make believe, music, sound, poetry, performers, performances, actors, musicians, politicians, people who perform and put on an act, right? People who are there to kind of persuade and make you believe something, right? So that would be like all the Pisces. And now, of course, there's more: unity, spirituality, right? Sacrifice, surrender, prayer. Like those are also all Pisces. And then it's like, okay, so if Mercury's there, I have to write down the keywords for Mercury, the way my mind works, the way I think, the way I talk and communicate, the way I consume information, the way I share information. And so you keep listing all those Mercury keywords. And what you do is you have to really say, okay, what does it mean then when Mercury is in Pisces? So it's almost like you make a sentence, right? It's almost like you weave the meanings of those two things together. And that's just one of the planets in the stellium. Then you have to do the same thing with the next planet in the stellium. And then the same thing with the next planet in the stellium. But the thing is, some of those planets, they only have to be in the same sign. Some of you have your planets where they're literally like right on top of each other. So let's get into that part of it. Let's get into that part of it because that's where there's a lot of that's like splitting hairs, right? Because it's like, wait a minute, a stellium simply is just multiple planets that fall within the same sign, right? But when we can go deeper than that. And so another definition is when several planets come together to form a multiple conjunction. And then they say, I'm just reading from astro.com, by the way, because I just thought, you know what, let's just see what their professional definition is, because you guys hear me talk all the time. And so I think hearing an outsider's perspective is good information. So okay, so it's a reoccurring story even. This one says it's a reoccurring story and then how they get triggered. Transits to stelliums and the reoccurring story, which is fascinating. So it says if you're juggling with the complex mixture of planets in a stellium, so that would mean in the same sign, or triple conjunctions, your life isn't the same as most people's that you know. Though the broad outline might be similar, the sign that it's in, what makes you different is the cast of reoccurring characters or their types and the repeated stories. It's like an extended or a continuing storyline. So that's kind of a way of looking at it in a simplistic way. Okay. So here it says the sequence of planets in a stellium tell a story. It is a story that unfolds repeatedly in your lifetime during various transits to the series of planets in your stellium. This pattern often becomes a theme. The players involved may be the same each time, or they may even look different on the outside, like characters in a play. We're wearing a mask, right? So unless you've learned new ways of relating since the last time the sequence was triggered by any transit, the relationship can turn out the same way. So stelliums are important because it's like we're working on something. So that sign is a deal, and so is that house number. right? Obviously, the individual planets make a big difference because let's say you've got Saturn as part of your stellium and Mercury part of your stellium and even Venus part of your stellium, right? Or even the North Node. Like there can be a lot of different combinations. And you would probably see these themes pop up in your life. Now, to see themes pop up in one's life, we have to have a certain level of self-awareness established. Like other people that we know, they may see the themes in our life that we don't see. They may be able to look at that and be like, "Oh, so like you have issues like with this," because it's always going to come up again. It's a freaking stellium. Because when there's a stellium, there's multiple things. So let's look at that. Let's just go there and pull this chart up, this example chart. And this isn't anything special. This is just the chart of the moment, just so that you guys know. Because the chart of the moment shows a stellium, right? And so it tells us about a theme because we can see it really clearly, right? All right, so you can see me over there. And then I'm going to go find the stellium. You can kind of see there's more than one. Look at Pisces. Look at Pisces. We have Saturn in Pisces in this chart. Right now we have vertex there. That's a fast mover. We have, how about this? Let me do this. I know I have another video that I'm going to be recording. A viewer's question. I got a message type of thing. And it'll be about going through all of these glyphs. Okay, so that'll be the next video. I know I'm kind of behind, and this sweet person asked me this question a message a while back, and so I want to make sure I get to it. But so we have Saturn, we have vertex, we have Nessa, and we have Neptune. This is a stellium, right? The interesting thing about this stellium is that the degrees, right? Only the vertex at 15 and the Nessa at 18 are close together. Because technically, look at this. Technically, this Neptune's at 27 and this Nessa is at 18. These are 9 degrees apart. Are they conjunct? Yeah, we could say that they're conjunct. Normally, they say an orb of 7 degrees. Neptune is a pretty far away planet. And it's really confusing. I've heard different thoughts on how to establish an orb with different planets. So we'll discuss that in that other video when we're talking about conjunctions and orbs, because it's not as simple as here's the basic rule. You can try to pin an astrologer down to answer that question, and good luck with that. But I'll go into why that is. Why it might be hard to get someone to pin that down. So for this, what is the theme? The theme is going to be the Pisces theme. That's the theme, right? That's the pattern, is the Pisces theme. So I gave all those Pisces keywords at the beginning for that reason. But then we see there's Neptune here, and Neptune rules the sign of Pisces, okay? And then you want to see what house it's in. So if this is somebody's chart, it lights up their 7th house. And if it's their natal chart, which is what it would be, this would always be a theme. There would always be this theme of significant one-on-one relationships or lack of them. Lack of them. And I say lack of them because Neptune it makes things disappear. It blurs the lines of reality. It says, if I have somebody in my life, they might not be there for very long. They could, it doesn't have to be that they died. It doesn't have to mean that, but there could be something about them that could be almost like a performance. And so when a person does a performance, it's not forever, right? It's a limited time role. And so Pisces in the 7th, you could look at that in someone's chart and be like, oh, wow. So in other words, they may start a relationship, but it may not last, right? Because it might be very dreamy at first to them, because Pisces is very dreamy. And so the dreamy part and having it in the 7th house, like your partner's 7th house, significant one-on-one relationships, they can be the ones who are dreamy, and so can you. Okay. But typically, if you have Pisces in the 7th, that can mean that. It can mean like, that who you're married to, who you're committing to is God. is to like prayer and meditation, and you surrender, and you just, yeah, you're like, I can do without. This is my sacrifice. Pisces in the 7th house. Okay. The other thing that would show a theme would be when they're close together. And so I started talking about Nessa because in this chart, the only thing that's close is Nessa and Vertex. Now, in your natal chart, if Vertex is near Nessa, Nessa is typically like a revenge almost energy, and then Vertex next to it. That's a big thing because to me, that would mean Vertex is an event or a person that comes into your life, right? It's like fated energy, FATED, fated. So if you've got like that conjunction, which you do, right? And it's with what kind of person? Well, it's next to Nessa. So there may be times where whoever's chart this would be, we'll call this a native's chart, because that's what you call the chart of somebody. You call them a native because you don't want to give away their identity, right? So we old astrologers used to use this all the time. Some may still do. I haven't used it, but I'm just going to throw that word up here because for the sake of this example chart, and we don't have anybody's name, we're just going to say the natives chart. Okay. I know that might not be so thrilling for some of you. You might be like, gee, don't go there. But yeah, the native, that would be the name of the person. Okay. So Nessa being someone who's more about revenge, somebody who's kind of like dark and behind the scenes, that's also Pisces. So, and to me, this is kind of this would be freaky. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat this one. This would be freaky if I actually saw this in somebody's chart. I would just be like, damn, because Pisces is already about behind the scenes and what's in the hidden. It's already a bit of a mystery. It's the hidden. So sometimes it's like your partner isn't seen a lot. Why is that? Right? And then Neptune too. And people who have Neptune in the 7th, it truly is like they're married to the divine. Well, do you see the divine? Do you see their partner? So these could be people of the cloth. Maybe at a young age. I hear this all the time from so many people. Oh, I was going to become a nun right out of high school. Like I hear this a lot from people. Not so much the younger folks, right? Maybe some of the older charts I've looked at. And that's just because, yeah, it's not to say that a young person can't feel that way. I'm just, yeah, probably giving too much information, but either way, this is what that would be because this is who you commit to. And having Nessa there in that vertex thing, I'd be highly concerned. And if this was my chart, this would likely be somebody who, after these experiences, after mating up, having these fated experiences with somebody who might be kind of, yeah, just like out to get them for one reason or another. Because remember, the 7th house is also the house of open enemies. Think about it. Think about it. I know it's messed up. I know it is. But typically, those who are closest to you can do the most damage to you, right? And that's the 7th house. If you get married and then we're going to get a divorce, they know everything about you, right? They've lived with you. They shared many years with you. They know all your weak spots. They know all the good stuff, right? And so if it comes time to do that divorce thing, it can get really ugly. And that's why they call the 7th house the house of open enemies, right? So if somebody has Nessa and Vertex, and then I would see Neptune, I would kind of be like, you know, maybe it is a good idea to like stick with spirituality and religion. And, if you have the strong drive to sacrifice, do it for a worthy cause, something higher than yourself, something higher than, don't do the sacrificing for another human being specifically, but do you feel close to God? Like, these are the questions I would ask somebody because this stuff can be difficult. This can be difficult because it will be a reoccurring theme because every time something is in the signs that would square that, that would be Sagittarius energy and that would be their 4th house. So could you imagine if you've got anytime something by transit angles up, which by the way, we have it here right now. Look at, we have Hermes. Right now, Hermes is squaring Nessa. It's at 20 degrees. And so that would be an angle that is a stress and tension. So if this was somebody's chart, if this was the native's chart, this would be difficult. And this is your home. The fourth house is your home. It's also mom and those mother wounds, but it's home and family. And man, that would just be a very hard thing to deal with. Across from that would be the other thing that squares it, and that would be Gemini energy. And in this chart, there's nothing over here in the degrees that would square it. There's nothing at 15, 16, 17, 18 in Gemini. But let's see what opposes it. That would be Virgo. And look, 23 degrees, 2357, we've got Ceres. So that Ceres would be squaring their Neptune and is close enough to also be squaring their Nessa. So you see how this could be a reoccurring theme, because this T-square is here all the time. This T-square will never go away for them, okay? And that is not even talking about the planets up in the sky. So every time we got planets and full moons and new moons and eclipses and the nodes, every time they travel and move, so as soon as something gets near the 18, 15 degree mark, it immediately starts opposing that opposition that already exists. So it triggers it. It's like a button gets pushed and it triggers it. And every time something comes over here at 15, 16, 17, even 14, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to push that button and trigger that already pre-existing stuff in Pisces in the 7th house. So it can be, it's that theme, that constant theme. And so that's myself and significant one-on-one relationships and home and family, but my emotions, my emotional security, my emotional needs. So this would be really difficult for somebody. And usually this kind of energy, it doesn't mean they're never going to find somebody or they can never be in committed relationships. It doesn't mean that. It just means there's maybe more, it may be less of a challenge to do it more in a spiritual way, with a spiritual purpose, serving and sacrificing for something higher. You follow? That would be something I could see happening, because I haven't even addressed the Saturn. You see how they also have Saturn here. Saturn typically means anytime Saturn is in a location in your chart, Saturn delays. It slows things down. Okay. So if it's in someone's 7th house, it is slowing down their ability to have a partner. You follow? The thing is, it also slows down that Pisces energy, right? Because this is the chart of the moment. So it's almost like a balance. Saturn adds structure and order. Saturn is also somebody who's older. So if they end up meeting somebody in this chart to deal with that Pisces stellium of issues, it might be best that they go with someone who's more mature and older than them, because normally energies in general take a bit of time for us to get acclimated and to learn how to work with them. And when I say time, years. We're talking years. And if it's Saturn, we're talking decades. We're talking decades. Yeah, I know. So you could be drawn and just more compatible with somebody who's older. Okay. And in this chart, like, look, if this was somebody's chart, look at their natal Venus. Like, this is so obvious, right? Look at their freaking natal Venus at 6 degrees over here. Here's their Venus at 6 degrees. Well, that Venus at 6 degrees, look what it does. It trines their Saturn. It says there's love for somebody who's older and wiser, and they may be spiritual. They may even have like a father vibration. And all that means, I mean, it could literally be a father. Like, you could be somebody who meets a person of the cloth and have like, oh my God, I love him, or I love her. Like, I'm not sure what religions do what now anymore, but it's an authority figure, possibly a religious authority. But this can be a Hollywood star, right? Because it's Pisces, or a musician. Those musicians who are older, and you're like, oh wow, I really love that person. I got a crush on them. Venus trines that. You see, Venus trines that. So there's ways to deal with the energy, but normally time is how we learn how to deal with it, because the more we experience the stelliums, we start to recognize it and we see it. And then we're like, okay, I got to learn to work with this. And I got to sometimes learn to what to avoid, right? And it all has to do with what we have here. When we make a choice, right? When we make that choice, like, okay, I know there are times, depending upon my mood, I might be selfish, I might be temperamental, I'm impulsive, I get angry, or I have emotional outbursts and I might scream and yell at somebody, or I may, just lose my temper and want things my way and be really stubborn and not want to consider what somebody else wants or their suggestions even, until we learn how to deal with ourselves, how to parent ourselves. The energy doesn't really change very much. We keep repeating and we keep seeing those cycles repeating because we have not learned here. Okay. So there's really no magic trick to any of this. It's really the same answer throughout the entire chart for whatever you look at. Cause I could nitpick the Taurus stuff, you know, and I just realized I wanted to like focus in on this so that you guys could see it, but I didn't do that. So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but you get what I'm saying. Like, let's go look at the Taurus stuff. There's so much in Taurus. It's crazy, right? Let's just stay with the green because Venus is Taurus and it rules Taurus. And so we'll look at the stellium in Taurus. It's insane, right? You see that? Let me see what you guys are looking at. Yeah, you can see it. The stellium in Taurus is like, what the hell? So what does this tell us? What's the theme? What is the theme we see here? Taurus, the earth. It's an earth sign. So think of all the things with the earth. Geez, like we could write books now, right? Animals, the planet, water, vegetation. It includes the oceans because it's the earth, the planet itself. It's not just the dirt, right? It's the entire planet, right? And our creature comforts, our food, Taurus energy, our food. So Taurus, being in the five senses, smells, taste, touch, clothing, right? Think of everything we grow. We grow cotton. Like we wear what we grow. Right now, this shirt that I have on, believe it or not, this is wool. This is a thin merino wool shirt. This comes from an animal, Taurus. Not the bull, of course, but Taurus includes all the babies of the earth, all the animals on the earth, all the vegetation on the earth. It sustains all life, doesn't it? Right. And so everything is really dependent on the earth functioning in a awesome way, right? Our food, our clothing, just everything. Some people wear plastic. That's not me. I won't be wearing plastic. Um so we see the themes and we have to decide, you know, are we valuing the earth? Are we taking care of the earth? Because if we value the earth, then why aren't we taking care of it? And if we are taking care of it, but yet it's not good enough, then we have to figure out how can we make a change. So these Taurus themes are really a big deal right now, right? But what about money and values and love? My desires. It's the desire energy, right? And banking, money and values. On a really base level, Taurus energy is just money on a very base level. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that think before we had paper, before we would print money, before we had coin, before we had a currency, what were we doing? How did we get something that we didn't have? We would barter for it, right? We would make it ourselves, whatever we had access to and whatever our skills were, and then we would barter. We would trade it to somebody else. This is all Taurus stuff, even though barter and trade is Gemini, but it begins in Taurus, and you see Gemini's next, right? Because it's about what I own, what is mine, Taurus, what I value. It's mine. And then when I take it to barter and trade with it, with that value, it's over in Gemini. I go to the store and I make a purchase, Gemini. You follow? So it's my values. And over time, right now we're using dollars and credit cards and all that other stuff, and now digital dollars and or digital money and whatever. Um, so it's like we're going through a crisis of values. And I say crisis because like Mercury's retrograding, we got the node here. Literally, there's a countdown to Jupiter entering Taurus. Countdown is like 5 days away, 6 days away. We've got Vesta, we got Uranus, the freaking sun is here right now. We've got Vulcan and Sedna. So we could write each one of these things down, each sign and their keywords, and then combine them with all the Taurus meanings, right? But the big picture is the theme, the reoccurring theme. Because if this is your birth chart, the theme would be Taurus energy. Okay. But we would also have to pay attention to each planet and those details. You saw how I did it in Pisces. And I really don't want to go through all 8 freaking things here in Taurus at this moment. I thought I was going to keep this video short and yeah, I didn't. Pisces had 4. That was good. That was a way to keep it short and concise. So a stellium, let me see what we got here. So the sequence of events, it tells a story, right? So I kind of got into the story that it tells. On the other hand, knowing how to use the positive potentials with the stellium, represented by that same series of planets, can be repeating those strategies. Wait, I'm sorry, I missed the line. Hold on a minute. I suck at this. I need glasses to read the laptop. When I got glasses, I keep putting them on like I'm going to use them and they don't work. I can't read the fine print on here. My eyes work better. So on the other hand, knowing how to use the positive potentials represented by that same series of planets can help you make better, more conscious choices. Analyzing things that you did right and consciously repeating those strategies is as important as learning from the mistakes. Bingo. By identifying the times that you used that series to achieve something worthwhile, you can look ahead to the coming transits to find future intervals for progress, future opportunities for progress. And it's like having those stelliums can kind of catapult you, because a stellium, getting back to the chart, when you see a stellium, it is powerful. It's powerful. When you have, especially when they're going to be close together like that. I've talked about this before, but when you have planets together like that, their emanation is stronger because they're together. You remember candle power? It's 1 candle power, 2 candle power. If you have 3, 4, 5 candles in the room, all of a sudden there's more light. The light radiates even further. You add more and more candles, and pretty soon it's like, wow, the whole room's lit, man, right? Think about it like that. So your orb would be of greater degrees, right? These two are at 18 and 15 because they're close enough, because that vertex is literally actually 16. It's 1543. Yeah, that vertex is 1543. Let me move that. There you go. And let me move this one. Yeah. And so together, 16 and 18 degrees, they're holding hands. They're holding hands. So when something aspects it at a square, it would probably trigger it almost as soon as it might have been like at 13, maybe even 12 degrees. And that's going to depend on the native's chart and the other things in the native's chart, because some people's energy in their charts are more sensitive than others. And the only way to know that, it comes down to the astrologer. I mean, obviously you is the one living it. It's your life. And so you could say, oh no, I felt that like 5 days ago, man, and then that would be like, oh, okay, this person's got a high level of sensitivity. They're conscious and aware, right? And they can feel it and they can talk about it, right? They can connect those dots. Not everybody can do that, especially if they're not looking at an astrology chart and they're thinking and relating it to that. So it gets really confusing, right? But trust me, once you start doing both, your awareness starts to multiply, it starts to grow. And that is like more than half the battle is that awareness. So for this chart, as an example, look, their fourth house cusp line is at 11 degrees. Their fourth house is at 11. So it is very possible that if that's at 11, it is possible that that square, that irritation, that stress and tension may always be there for them. And especially when a planet comes trucking through here, let's just pretend the moon comes through here, right? And it lines up with their fourth house cusp line, it's going to trigger that big time. And it'll create that stress and tension. And to me, it's like an event. It's a person because you got vertex there and it's next to Nessa. So it's kind of got like this revenge energy, but you're not going to be able to recognize them because it's in Pisces, and Pisces can be tricky because it's a performer. It's someone who's can act. So you kind of, if this was your chart, I'd be like, you got to have a high level of discernment where you're really figuring that out. And again, it would take lifetime of talking and meeting and just dealing with people in general, where you learn to protect yourself, where you learn to go through, the where you learn to just pick up on those things and to test people to basically test them. And that's what Saturn does. And that's why this chart, Saturn would actually save somebody, because Saturn is the rules and the structure. And this Saturn would actually limit some of that Pisces energy from being so delusional. It would actually add a little bit more structure to it. Because that's what Saturn does, it restricts. It sets up borders, it sets up walls, it can slow things down, so it would slow down all the fantasy and all the red and all the rose-colored glasses. Okay. So I don't know if this was enough on stelliums. Let me know in the comments below, especially if you want me to, like if you have a specific question, and then we can, do like a part 2 to talk about this and to better understand it. So for right now, I think hopefully that kind of gives a good enough explanation for what a stellium is in your chart. But at the end of the day, a stellium is going to be reoccurring themes in your life. Reoccurring themes in your life. I'm just being weird. I was going to write the word stellium right across here. It's not really being weird, but it's just like, I like drawing. I do. I miss it. I haven't been doing it at all. I need to get back to doing it, but it just takes so long, and the astrology takes so long, and I'm just not fast at all. And if I ever was fast, I'm slower now than I was before. So I'm just like, ah. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your questions, your comments below. If you don't have your chart, what are you waiting for? Get your chart. Comment to me below. Let me know how I can help you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.